Welcome to Playing with Fire, the podcast for people who are ready to custom build their love.
We're talking about non-monogamy, however you design it, as an individuation opportunity.
Want to leave the default and make your life spectacularly you? You're in the right place. What does it mean to do the work?
The work.
To work on your relationship, like to do the work of your relationship. I think this is a great question for us because, I invite people into containers to do work on their relationship, and people ask me to help them work on their relationships.
And by that, they mean they want their relationship to be better, more of what they want their relationship to be, which is, of course, specific to them.
Right, exactly. I have to move this candle. There's a candle behind Ken, and it looked like he was on fire.
Oh.
You're not on fire.
Dragons can take it.
Oh, it's true.
So
work.
What is the work for you? What is the thing that you're doing? Well, what's your relationship purpose? What's it all about?
What's it for?
What's it for?
That's one of my favorite relationship questions. We've done a very early episode on this, on relationship purpose. I think it's one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself if right now your relationship is stagnant, if you're feeling confused, if you are at odds, if you're constantly at odds. Get clear on what your relationship purpose is before going any further. That's so important.
Yeah, because it's important to note that. So if I feel like my relationship is stagnating, well, somewhere in there, I know what my relationship purpose is, and it's not being met. Like that's what stagnant is.
Yeah.
Right. So somewhere there is one, even if you've never thought about it.
Even if it's unspoken, totally implicit, buried in the unconscious. So I like to divide up that question of purpose into two things, though, because I do think it's important to be clear about like what my purpose in intimate or romantic or friendship, whatever kind of relationship I'm describing. I think it's helpful to get clear on what's the purpose of this relationship, because I have relationships that are, for instance, entirely sexual. There is some baseline friendliness, but that's about all. There's not a particular overlap beyond that. And then I have other relationships where the whole thing is based on deep emotional overlap and the purpose. And that's not just about the relationship, but about the kinds of relationships I make myself available for.
So what is your relationship purpose with me?
Oh,
our relationship.
With you specifically, I have a relationship purpose that says that we are committed to continual individuation, which means becoming more and more ourselves, and supporting each other's individuation, even in the face of personal discomfort, and to stay committed to the path of psychological and spiritual growth.
And we've had this conversation. We've talked about our individual relationship purposes, and they line up for our relationship with each other.
So I have an individual relationship purpose that I hold for different types of relationships. And then you and I crafted that particular purpose together out of you. In fact, I remember when we were talking about the purpose, and this, by the way, having your, what is the purpose of this relationship work? That's some of the work. Like that conversation, that's some of the work of showing up to the relationship and doing the work, because you can make your relationship better through so many different angles, but clarity
on your purpose. There's finding that clarity, working toward that clarity. That's some of the work.
But I want to just cycle back, because I think it is important to say that. So I have different types of relationships that I hold, like, okay, this is the purpose of those relationships in my life, like why I have them. That's a whole long conversation I have with myself, an exploration I have with myself. Like, what is the purpose of, for instance, my friendships right now? And then I go out and I have all these different friendships that fit into my overall understanding of like, what is friendship for in my life? And then I have these specific relationship purpose statements that I have with various relata. I love that word, relata. Justin Clardy put it in his book, Why It's Okay to Not Be Monogamous. He's a philosopher. I think maybe UC Berkeley. I'm not sure which one. One of the one. And
are relate to the
The
people
people
you
in
have relationships
relationships. Yeah.
with.
And I just think it's a handy term.
It is.
But the idea that I negotiate a relationship purpose with you, that's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Because then if we can't come to a shared purpose, we've got some good information about what's causing any strife that's
Yeah.
going on. We got some really good intel.
Yeah.
But that's not going to get you. The opening question was, what does it mean to do the work?
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, it's one of those things that it's tempting to say, like, I don't know, but I'll know it when I see it. But I think we can actually get more specific than that, because I have seen many people show up to a process, but then miss some of the key ingredients. And I think that there are a few really key ingredients to doing the work. I think that effort, attitude, and structure really make a difference when you're talking about, okay, I want to intentionally build relationship. I want to intentionally use this relationship for my own growth, but I also want to intentionally build this connection, whatever this thing is between us.
Yeah, build the connection. That's because, sure, like you said, you can work on yourself, and you kind of need to understand how you're going to show up in any particular relationship. The more you know about yourself, the better that's going to go. But then, what are we doing together? What are those connections between us, and what governs them, and what makes them better and worse? And so when you say effort, then
So
effort toward,
well, I mean, toward your purpose. So
Mhm.
let's say, so you and I, we just talked about our relationship purpose, and it's kind of highfalutin. Like, that's all a little much, honestly. Not everybody's relationship purpose
No,
or
that's
every relationship's purpose needs to be like that. What if your relationship purpose, I was just talking to somebody today, their primary relationship purpose is fun and adventure together. Cool, great. Like, once you know that, well, then the effort that they put into their relationship, the effort that it is to do the work for them is going to look different than it will for what we just described as our purpose, which is um, mutual interests in each other's spiritual and psychological growth.
Mhm.
So for me, the effort to showing up to our relationship involves um, unpacking my projections constantly,
right.
because when I project all over you, and we could do a whole episode just on projections, but when I'm projecting my stuff, my psychological material all over you,
Mhm.
it really gets in the way of you being free to do your own growth, to becoming who you are. So constantly recollecting my
Yep.
projections,
And
super
in
important.
and
And
in
that
the
takes
other,
effort.
it does take effort. And in the other direction, similarly. So, for example, throughout this day today, a bunch of stuff happened for me, and I find myself feeling this sort of hostility and defensiveness, and uh, like I really want to set hard boundaries, and just like, grr. But that's not your problem
Yeah, it
at
had
all.
nothing to do
I
with
could
me.
not. It had nothing to do with you. I could project that stuff all on you, and
Oh, we've done that.
and we've done that. And one of the ways that I know not to do it is some of the work is working through those moments and not running away from them, and not turning them into something. Um, uh, so they're fights. Okay, sure. But they're
Or the
fights,
fight's waiting to happen.
they're fights waiting to happen. But toward the end of, so what's going on here? Not just you suck and I'm great, or I suck and you're great. It's oh yeah, what's happening inside of me right now? And you help me. And the times that it turns into a fight is when I'm like, here, you help me. You didn't ask. I don't care. You help.
So I'm hearing, I do that as well. Good Lord. Um, the concept of effort
Yep.
in relationship. So in our relationship, some of the effort is quite it is psychological. It's the stuff you learn if you go to couples counseling together. Hopefully you're learning about not asking each other to do your work, and
Mm-hmm.
to tending to your side of the street. That might be how you hear it put, take care of the stuff that's on your side of the street, stay in your own hula hoop. Very important. But for somebody who, and those are going to be important anyways, but then we do all these we'll actually get into some exercises. We regularly explore dream work together, or we do intentional fantasy sharing, or we'll sit and do some peer-to-peer coaching with each other to walk through a problem, or we'll do an imago dialogue to process big emotions. And all of that also takes effort.
Yep.
And somebody whose relationship purpose is primarily fun and adventure, like if that is their stated purpose, they might have a whole different set of things that require effort from them. So the effort might be, the thing is, you're still going to have to deal with emotions. I would still recommend that you have enough bandwidth to show up to having difficult conversations and to making agreements and such. But what comes up for me when I think about somebody whose relationship is about fun and adventure is, okay, who's planning that fun and adventure? Who's putting in the effort to make fun and adventure happen? And that could be on a micro scale as well as a macro scale. So that might be
who's imagining new adventures.
Yeah, but it's also, who starts a playful, I often will go get my roller skates on. I don't think I've ever seen you put your roller skates on first. We roller skate around our house pretty frequently, but I don't think I've ever seen you put your roller skates on first. It's just not a thing you think to do as much. And that's fine for me. I don't like, I have no emotional attachment to you putting on your roller skates first, but there are all these little moments of injecting fun.
And what I hear is there's a combination of effort and attitude happening right now. We're starting to kind of ease into the next thing that you mentioned,
right,
which is attitude. So there's,
how do you show up to
there's
the party?
The effort to put in, but then there's the attitude, how you show up with it. And so I have come to you and offered you your roller skates. That's a very different attitude, isn't it?
Totally different. It's a different way to show up to that party. Yeah. And you do that all the time. You are a great person to be in support. You're so good at it. So I mean that, like, you are so good at seeing where support is needed and then like building foundations.
But I'm not as much of a driver.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's not a bad thing.
They're different.
So you bring a different type of effort, and your attitude to the work is different. So it is true, you are also less likely to initiate a difficult relationship conversation than I am. Initiate, but not less likely to show up to the actual conversation. Like if I ask for it, you show up to it, and you bring full effort when we're in it. And I see that show up for a lot of people. A lot of times we wind up dealing these things out like they're roles. Like, oh, you're the driver one, and I am not, therefore, because we only have room for one. But also then true. Like, okay, so if I'm the driver, if I'm the initiator of a particular activity, does that mean I can't bring your energy, your thoughts, your beliefs? I can't bring that to our conversation, right? So the effort is, can you show up fully to it, even though you didn't instigate it?
Right. Yep.
I mean, hell, that goes for starting sex. Like if I'm initiating sex and you show up fully, great, awesome. That's fine. I don't need you to initiate it. I need both of us to show up fully.
Well, okay, right. There it is.
So the effort,
whatever your purpose is, the effort that, as I experience it, is showing up fully as myself.
Yeah.
They're fully, all the stuff, all the pieces. And even the ones that might be a little uncomfortable for me. So there's some effort. Cool.
And there's where your attitude. So if I have a positive attitude toward the idea of doing relationship work, that's going to go a long way toward making the work feasible and like helping it maintain its own momentum, right? Like, it's so easy. Gosh, I mean, I'm going to count. Hang on. In the last week, I have heard 4 different people expound upon the glories and joys of how relationships should just unfold naturally, and they should just be easeful. And if they're not, then something's wrong.
Okay.
That is a view on relationships, and that will get you a particular kind of relationship. But it is certainly not the only view on relationships, and it's not the one that I see panning out into deep growth-oriented relationships, nor is it really that compatible with complex relationships
Mhm.
where we have multiple relationships intersecting with each other and affecting and impacting each other?
Complexity is often not easy.
Right. And, or maybe easeful is the wrong word, because at this point, I find our complexity quite easeful. I didn't when we started. In fact, I found it to be almost, uh, it, effort doesn't even cut it. It was my Everest. It was
There
like
was so
the
much
work.
to learn, and
Yeah, the work of being in the relationship felt like it was so much effort, and that would go on just like that forever. But it didn't. And one of the ways it didn't stay like that forever is because we started putting structure in place.
yes,
So I
I
said at the beginning, effort, attitude, and structure. Those are the three things that I think of when relationship work comes up. I think, okay, are you committed? And are you showing up with full effort?
and
Are you showing up with a positive attitude, a growth oriented mindset? Cool. And then the structure, like, oh, it's just so hard to do the work if we don't even know what we're doing.
Mhm.
So the structure could include, what are your relationship check-ins? What questions are you using with each other to help each other dive into difficult conversations? Do you have structured processes to deal with big emotions like an imago dialogue, or some other deep dive form that can hold you? Like, what are the structures, those structures, like the apology and accountability ladder, that helps us. I mean, our fighting got so much faster. It
faster
was just
that
much more efficient once we
yeah.
realized that could be made into a step by step, so that we weren't fumbling, and we just weren't going on and on. So we put these structures in place so that when we show up with the effort, we know what to do. It's just more that makes it easeful. So that makes it easeful, even though it's not easy.
Right. Well, yeah, sure. It is more easeful because we're not reinventing ways to fight, ways to grow
Ways to
every
process
time,
it.
ways to process. We're
Yeah.
not reinventing them. And to your point about, it should flow naturally, as though I should, and I've done this. I totally get that, as though I should have somewhere within me, in my DNA or something, these instructions that say this is how to engage with another person in a relationship. And if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, here's an idea. People work in these ways, and if you interact according to this set of processes, things might go better." Like, yeah, but I didn't think of that. So, no.
Yeah,
It feels so silly to me to say that now, considering all the things that I've learned. But the
but it is how we worked
mhm.
for,
Oh yeah,
I mean, the first 4 or 5 years of our relating was exhausting, because it's like we thought it all had to come from just within us.
right.
And even when we sought out counseling, we weren't introduced to any formal structures that would help us. So
Nope.
when we we're in the counseling room, great, but then we left and we didn't know how to replicate what we'd done because we weren't handed clear structures, which now I know to ask the people I'm working with, like, what sort of structures do you work with? What sort of tools will you help me? Because my goal as a coach, and one of the reasons I stay in the coaching realm rather than working in the clinical therapeutic realm, is because I like operationalizing things. I like people
Yep.
to get the tools that they need to then no longer need me. That's my goal. I don't want them. I mean, I love doing ongoing work with, a few particular people who click with me and are like, "Yep, I think you're the person for me to work with long term." But it is so empowering to have these
Oh,
tools
it is.
and to know what it means to go do the work. So you hit a rough patch, and either you're bored, or you're fighting all the time, or one of you announces that you want something completely different that just feels like it throws the whole train off the tracks. And if you have some structures around agreement making, around processing feelings, around apologizing where things have gone poorly, it's efficient.
It's efficient. And
It's
so
efficient.
we learned structure. We learned that there could be structure. We learned processes and tools
So I
to,
made a ton of them too.
and you made a lot of them.
I
And
mean,
then we practiced them. And that
Yeah.
took some time. Like it's not like they just out of the gate everything worked smoothly. So now we're back to the effort.
Yeah, and that's something I find that people who come into my programs often don't really realize. So you can show up. So let's say in the year of opening, we meet weekly, 46 times over a year. Cool. I mean, I love it. I totally love it. That's part of the work. And it's really important to show up and be in community and be connected. And then in between those times, it is so important that you take whatever it is, even if it's only a little piece of what we did that week, and you go put it into your life. And that you turn to those tools and you start incorporating them, because now they become part of you. You shift and mold and make the tool what you need it to be. You and it becomes a part of you. I It honestly sounds ridiculous to me at this point to not know how to like walk through an apology ladder in a few steps. Boom, there's the 5 steps, do it. But I've been doing it with my kids so the whole time, so 24 years. But before that, literally had no idea. Once you make it part of you, yeah, the tool itself becomes a little like irrelevant. You may even forget that you have a tool for it because it becomes so a part of you. I had to actually haul the apology ladder back out of me because I'd been using it so long with kids that I forgot that that's what I was just automatically walking through. Like, oh, something has gone wrong. There's been a rupture and someone feels it wants to take responsibility. And boom, here we walk through this. So the effort comes in dedicating time to doing this, to being part of the conversations, to practicing the tools, to doing the inner explorations. Because some of it is like the relationship purpose. Yeah, you got to dig in, figure out, why do you show up to relationships?
It's good to know because then you know where to apply your effort.
And then
And
every time I get clear before I come to you, if I get clear on what, like, for instance, my relationship purpose is, or even what structure I want, or what I want to do next, or what vacation I want to go on, does anything, if I can get some clarity there, that's me also practicing my differentiation.
right.
And as I practice that, I also start to recognize your unique sacred otherness, and that's part of the work too. So I practice it by doing that part of the efforting up front, and then coming to you or whoever I'm relating to and connecting and having those conversations. Rinse and repeat, on and on. Like
On and
it
on.
is, that's the cycle. But it's kind of a misnomer to call it relationship work. It's being alive. Like, what else are you going to do with your life other than connect to other humans and connect to yourself?
Right.
What, like,
That's
I mean,
where we are. We're in a
I love going for a good run or lifting a heavy deadlift. And even when I'm doing that, I'm connecting to myself. Or if I'm out for a run with somebody else, I'm connecting to them, and I'm figuring out how we want to hold pace together. Like anything I do.
So we do this relationship work, this life work. And we've done a lot of it together. We do the things separately, individually. We come together, we work, we practice, and yet there's still something. There's more, because when it's just you and me working on this relationship, we can only see what we can see.
Yeah, hard to
And
see the water we're swimming
it's
in.
hard to see the water we're swimming in. So having third party support,
Yep.
other sets of eyes and minds
And
observing, and
other ideas of what's possible.
yes, imagine another imagination of what could be.
So that might take the form of a counselor. It's true. Coaching is awesome. Peer support can be amazing. Or like relationship groups. There are groups who meet, even informal groups that get together and just they're with the fact that relationships are part of life. And if we normalize the fact that getting together and talking about relationships and figuring out how to do them well and how to show up as me and not as somebody else, or not like just following somebody else's structures, but how do I like fold that structure into the matrix that is me? Showing up and doing that in community is beautiful. And there are people who are just out there creating those communities for themselves. Maybe you're a person who's doing that right now. Recently we had a podcast on about finding your people. There are non-monogamy communities where people are talking about this just peer to peer. It's amazing to know that that exists. And whatever third party support you might need, what I would encourage is not waiting until there's a problem, but instead seeing
really
the
good
opportunity,
advice.
right? The opportunity for growth, for challenging yourself. And that doesn't mean you always need, I don't mean to be saying everybody always needs to be in therapy, though many of us do and will be in therapy our whole lives. Like that's something I take as a given for my life, because I have trauma and I'm unpacking it, and I'm fueling myself by being present with another human who's holding my process. But it's just really exciting to know that I can be constantly growing by exposing myself to other ideas when I'm not in distress.
It is.
I mean, it's great to have help in distress.
It really
and
is.
What about when you're not in distress and you just want the growth? Pretty exciting. There's somebody in one of our cohorts right now that came in and described themselves as a power couple. And they're like, we've got these things nailed down. We are ready for the next exploration. And I so loved that take on their life. And I was very curious to see what will happen. And now we're past the halfway point in their experience. And they're like, whoa, our communication skills have just up leveled so much. And our ability to see what we didn't know.
There it is. What you don't know, you don't know. Find somebody else and they know stuff you don't know.
Yeah. It's so exciting.
So exciting.
So yeah, maybe we should retitle this episode How to Do the Relationship Play. I know you're a big fan of changing work to play.
Yeah, because it's effort. Play is effort too. And I do have associations with the word work, but that's my personal thing.
So cheers to the work.
Cheers to the work.
Whatever form you find it in. If you're interested in taking on this work in the year of opening, there'll be a new cohort starting in January of 2024. I invite you to get on the wait list at theyearofopening.com. There's no one right way to design your relationship. And lots of people, actually about 25%, according to a recent national survey, are interested in some type of open relationship. But how do you know if you are ready to open up happily? Not everyone is, and that's no problem. I've got a 60-second quiz that will give you the answer. And even better, you'll walk away with your next step, whether you're good to go or not so much when it comes to opening up. And this is no BuzzFeed nonsense. I personally designed this quiz from my years of academic research. Go to joliquiz.com. That's JOLIQUIZ.com and find out if you're ready to open up happily and what to do if you are or if you're not.